Captain's log. This is your captain speaking. This is your captain speaking. Captain's log. Does anyone out there have an actual preference? Neither? Something else altogether? This is the sort of soul-searching reflection one might expect from this week's year-end episode entitled Episode 14, Happy New Beer. But seriously, if anybody has an opinion, please reach out. This week's episode of the Beer Avengers podcast is sponsored by Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 3511 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens, now featuring for an increasingly limited time the 2020 Goose Island Bourbon County brand stouts. I mean, seriously, people, I was just there and they're running really low. Though that's not the only reason to stop by. During my recent visit, Ryan loaded me up with all sorts of goodies like Three Floyd's People Power High Tea, Night Shift's Bennington Stout, and some really fantastic-looking meads from St. Ambrose. Enjoy their eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items. Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, home bar to yours truly, Captain Porter Brown Stout. Strap in for today's super size show, featuring 5 amazing pours and lots of reminiscing about our individual years in beer. We've got a couple corrections in advance. Beer Wonder would like you to know that Cider Girl is, of course, a Beervenger in her own right, and not, as he says on this show, merely a friend of the Beervengers. And I would like to personally thank our listeners in Alberta, Canada, and apologize to you for referring to you as Hamilton, Ontario. Even with 2 oversized, aged 11% stouts under my belt, I'm not quite sure how that happened. My personal year in beer relies in part, as my reminiscences often do, to the delight and glee of my fellow Beervengers, on the help of Excel spreadsheets. In this spirit, I'd like to dedicate this show to my late mother. Though I never mastered them to her satisfaction, the only reason I have the first clue about spreadsheets is a result of her urgings. Without further ado, please enjoy episode 14, Happy New Beer.
Well, we're the Beervengers, Beervengers, Beervengers.
We're the Avengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed live location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brown Stout.
And coming to you from a undisclosed location in Manhattan town, I am Hophead Huck, a.k.a. Pale Male.
And coming to you from a live undisclosed location in the county of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder!
And we are the
Beervengers. I like how we all slow down in order to catch up to each other, and we all slow down at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the best it's ever been.
Because
we're all,
exercise, yeah.
All right, welcome to the Beercast, everybody. Like I just said, this is a live Beercast. We are currently also appearing on Facebook Live for some people. I think I might have accidentally set up 2 streams because I just got a message from the Belgian babe that she can't see anything because I think she's on the one that's not working, and hopefully she and some others will figure all of that out. Yeah, it's New Year's Eve. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. Because what better time to celebrate? Well, to really, I mean, in the spirit of 2020, what better way to go out than a little bit of day drinking?
Hell yeah.
And to paraphrase an old expression, it's always 2021 somewhere. Or, I mean, it is. It is now.
It is in Micronesia.
Yeah.
And in, and I think in about a half hour in Moscow, we're not going to count it down, but just in like, yeah, in certain parts of Europe, far Europe and Asia, I know in the Middle East.
Yep.
It'll be Happy New Year. And most of you will be listening to this on January 4th or later, but we wanted to do this so we'd be in whatever version of the New Year's Eve spirit we can muster in 2020.
Indeed. Yeah, I'm glad you gave that warning. We're not going to count down for every city as we come across. No.
That sounds exhausting, to be completely honest.
Yeah. It's just we'll think of that being implied as we're talking. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. It's the first show we've had in a while with just the 3 of us, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, so far it's really wonderful.
I'll be honest though, I'm a little thirsty.
Oh,
I am too. I was just gonna. I apologize, Beer Wonder. I was just gonna try and tell people what they were in for, but you're right.
Good.
We've done the back and forth. Just basically, we're gonna talk about our year in beer. Each one of us is gonna talk about our year in beer, but and other stuff. And I now I can't remember what else, but because I'm so distracted because what's clearly it's time for the pours.
Of course.
oh yeah,
naturally.
this beauty is staring me in the face. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like it would only be polite to have Beer Wonder go first.
I agree
How
completely.
kind! Oh, look at this lessons in propriety. Well,
Youth before beauty.
you're kind. You're kind. I did nothing to earn that. But
Did I just call you ugly?
It's fine.
He's
I'll
a very
take-
good-looking man, folks.
I appreciate that. Well, I wanted to represent for another New York City local brewery, and I wanted to say hey to our friends over at Fifth Hammer, where I have got their beautiful pentatonic pills
Nice.
today to help me round out 2020, something nice and light and crisp. So let's get this open. That's a good crack right
Nice.
That is a good crack.
there. Righty, and here we go.
That is a Pilsner.
It's got that beautiful golden color.
Oh yeah.
Got good carbonation on it. Nice straw. Just a touch of head on there, and clear as the daylights. It's going to be awesome. I'm very excited.
That's a beaut.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going a little further north this week. I'm going back to our good friends up at Trillium Brewing. One of my favorite beers this year has been the Daily Serving. We had it's a fruited Berliner Weiss, and we had it. We've had different versions. Had the raspberry, had the cherry, and this one is the pomegranate and blackberry.
Ooh.
Which I think I also had another can of this and shared it with y'all recently, but just
That
this
sounds familiar.
this beer is a beauty, and the way they taste, and it's from October, so I think it's going to still be good. I didn't roll the can, but we'll take a look here.
Oh, it's got that gorgeous red color in it. Just
It's
so
got
perfect.
that it's got that fresh fruit in there, So you do want to drink it fresh, but it's been refrigerated the whole time, so that's the key really with these fruited beers. Take a look at that. I mean, that's like
That's
straight up
fantastic.
palm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
Oh.
going to be so delicious. I bet.
Pomegranate City. Oh, smells so good. All right, Captain.
Okay, so I also have a returning brewery.
Mm.
I thought I'd start out with my localist of local breweries, Single Cut. I know I just did them 2 weeks ago to celebrate their birthday, but I got this can a couple weeks before, and as soon as it is, like, this looks like a year-end thing. This is their Heavy Boots of Lead
Ooh.
with a twist because it was aged from 2019.
Oh man.
Oh, bringing back something, pushing us forward into the new.
Has that nice little wax cover like you see with the bourbon barrels.
Mhm.
And hopefully I can figure out how to get it off here. Oh, there's a little ribbon here.
So that's
to
a
tug
real
on.
wax top on the can.
It is. It's
That
a
is very cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, get a picture of that.
Oh, I see. It's the okay. Here we go.
Oh,
Wax is coming off.
Ah,
that's great.
And-
Now I think I had a Heavy Boots of Lead in 2018.
Here we go. Still. Oh, here we go. Now I'm getting the rest of the. This is exciting. It's like it's like Christmas morning when someone wraps something a little too tight, a little too well. Like, wow, your artistry is wonderful, but I just want my present. And now that I've done this, I realize that it's something that I just pulled off is part of the thing to open the beer with. So I'm going to try and just there we go.
Oh, look at that!
Finish that very ungracefully with a ballpoint pen.
Nothing stands between a captain
A
and a
closed
stout.
ballpoint pen. Yeah. And here is our Heavy Boots of Lead 2019.
Oh, that is definitely a Captain Worthy beer right there.
Yeah, we're already seeing that head there for a year-old beer. That's pretty nice.
Yep, that looks beautiful. Also, can't really see through it. Almost as dark as your disguise.
Oh yeah, here we go. This little
All right.
lovely nose.
All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Beer Avengers.
Cheers, Beer Avengers.
Happy New Beer.
Happy New
Mm.
Beer.
Oh yeah.
So good.
This one just gives.
Everyone's happy. We're
We
ending
are happy.
2020 on such a high note with these beers. It's
Oh.
very exciting.
I really get the pomegranate on this. Like, I mean, I'm not like a big pomegranate juice drinker, but man, combined with the blackberry, it's just like, bam, just zinging, fruity zinginess, just floating all around the mouth and the throat. It's just, woo!
Is it coming off the nose too? Are you getting the smell there? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, if you gave this to a middle schooler, and said, "Oh, here, drink your juice," he wouldn't blink. Be like, "Well, this is a lot of juice. This is a very juicy juice you got here." It is low in alcohol though, so he'd be okay. 4.1, or she.
Now I'm not sure what the one is on this one. I always forget to look that up in advance. Not always, but sometimes. And don't see it here, but we'll figure that out later.
It's above 10, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like an 11 or so.
Just the look on it makes it feel like it would have to be above 10. Because my goodness.
Yeah. This is very. It's the flavor from what I've had before is very recognizable. It's got that really thick, kind of boozy thing going on, and I think that actually the year of aging has mellowed it a little bit. It's even more smooth.
Well, I know that's one of my favorite imperial stouts as far as the classic stouts. And I like it when there's no adjuncts. It's just a really well-made imperial stout for sure.
I feel like that's the mark of a true, excellent brewmaster is when you don't have to hide behind all sorts of other flavors. If you can make something that's just sort of pure, it's just a really good reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing against these big pastry stouts. I like those too.
Of course not. As the guy who likes 35 different hops in his beer,
I I've tended to like marshmallows in my stouts.
I was just having an off-color s'mores yesterday.
Oh yeah, off color, right?
Dino s'mores from off color, and I think Chicago.
Is it?
Is off color from Chicago? I think they are. I was doing it with a family.
Oh, I was thinking of Offshoot, which is a offshoot of Firestone Walker.
Okay,
am I saying that right?
I think so.
I did just ask Google just to close the loop on this one. Off color is indeed from Chicago.
Very good.
All right, I got a good photo. Wait, hang on, so I can get it.
Check that out. All right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Beautiful. All right.
Work it.
Exactly. Get your angles there, Huck. We want to make sure that we're doing this supermodel approved as we.
All right, we have our first question coming in from.
That's very exciting.
We have a woman
named.
What are adjuncts? I've heard you use the term on prior podcasts. Adjuncts. What are adjuncts?
It's a good word.
There's actually two.
How have we said it with regard to beer?
It's usually there's two ways you have an adjunct. One is when, as simply as a wheat beer, Hefeweizen, where your adjunct is wheat, and it takes up a portion of the grain bill. In a lot of cases with American beers like Budweiser's, we have rice lagers. So rice is your adjunct. It's not necessarily supposed to be there according to the beer purity laws. But nowadays, when we see adjuncts like this fruit, like the pomegranate, like the blackberry, or in the case of the stouts, the marshmallow, the cacao, the coffee, the Trix cereal, whatever they put in these crazy beers these days.
Yes,
chicken wing
sauce.
The other day. So those are two kinds of adjuncts.
So speaking of adjunct lacking beers, mine is a pretty traditional Pilsner as they go down. It's got Saaz in it. It's got traditional Pilsner malt. The one thing that they're doing at Fifth Hammer that I just love and I really get out of this one is the primary fermentation happens in a wooden foeder. I guess that's how we're pronouncing it, Huck. Is that how we decided?
I think we're saying foeder, yeah.
Foeder, okay, great. Which is a fermentation vessel, but it's made out of wood, and this one is made out of American oak. So you get a fun woodiness to this, which adds something to that really good, crisp, kind of sweet, little bit bitter kind of Pilsner that you like. I mean, they're doing it's just such a good job. It's such an easy, good way to kind of wash away 2020 with.
Yes.
Right out of there, yeah.
Yes.
So I did, by the way, just find the spot on the can. I was correct. It is an 11%, and they have a wonderful. You wouldn't call it a mission statement, but just a nice little. I guess it's a motto. It's their approach towards brewing. It's mystery knows no shortcut.
Ah, yes.
It's that single cut.
11% is also a good way to wash away 2020. So,
Yes. 11% and then another 11%.
Yeah, we could always get a
because
nap
this is
in.
definitely going to be at least a two pour show for me.
Oh, for sure.
It's just everything we have to pack into this episode. It's going to be a 2 pour show, but I'm pacing
Well, this
myself.
one's going down real easy. Of course, it is quite light alcohol. It's great for the afternoon. I mean, this is like sipping on a yacht kind of beer. I think if we had a yacht, you get some of these fruity Berliners just to enjoy as the wind blows through our hair and feel that ocean breeze, the ocean spray, if you will.
If we had a yacht, we'd probably also be wealthy enough to have few enough people on it that we could all keep our distance.
6 feet.
That's right.
Yeah. Just because, yes, we would spend that amount of money to be on a yacht. Just all and certainly we probably wouldn't even be able to hear ourselves over the yacht rock.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That Kenny Loggins would be cranking out of the speakers there. So yeah,
it's a highway to the danger zone.
Also,
we'd be cutting it footloose.
Also, Yacht Rocker, excellent beer coming out of, I want to say it's 5440. It's a Washington no, it's an Oregon-based. I will double check, ask the Google, but there is a delightful IPA there known as Yacht Rocker, which we can all enjoy on our yachts.
I think there's another one in Jersey as a Yacht Rocker. Well, I know that Brick City does Yacht Jams, and that's a collab with another brewery that does a yacht beer. I think it's a Jersey brewery. We'll have our fact checker get on that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
we
Google.
need to make sure we have all the up-to-date yacht rock / beer information.
I'm really hearing Highway to the Danger Zone on our yacht.
Yeah, we could also make it a little Archer themed as well, since that's his favorite song.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He just seems to blurt it out every once in a while.
All right, so
for all the Archer fan / beer Avengers out there.
I'm being the fact checker, asking our dear friend Google to help us out. The Yacht Rocker I was referencing is from 5440 Brewing Company, which is in Washington State.
Right,
so that was the one I was thinking of. But there's tons out there. So
everybody wants to have a beautiful beer on a yacht.
Yes, I think except now we've lowered our standards this year to everyone wants to have a beautiful beer somewhere,
anywhere,
anywhere.
We're outside of this house.
Which I know is a slightly depressing way, the way it's framed, the way I just framed it, thanks to me. But I was also thinking about something Beer Wonder said when we first poured all of our beers about how we're all happy with this. And it's funny, over the years when I watch local news, actually even network news, where they're always saying things about, and now for some good news.
Right.
And then there were all the podcasts. Yeah, absolutely. Feel good stories and all the the podcasts and video things where someone says we're going to do a show of nothing but good news. And I just there's still bad stuff happening. But I realized that by definition, we're kind of that.
Yeah.
What I mean is we're about to tell you all about our best moments of the year in beer.
Right.
Which is an entirely all the positive stuff that happened to us amidst this shit show we're all living. But we're not ignoring it. We're not hiding our heads in the sand, but we're saying this is where we found some relief in 2020.
Yeah, I mean the frame. I mean, that's the thing about it is there's no one in the world that's not affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Well, unless you're in South Dakota, then you're you just
then you're all affected.
Everything just goes on as normal.
Antarctica was I think also the other saving grace, but now they've got
hopefully
some action happening.
We got a couple of Antarctic listeners today.
Hello.
Well, I certainly hope so. Oh, that was the one statistic I did not compile, but I might look it up in a bit. Is just how many different places people listen to us over the last quarter of a year that we did this show.
Wow, quarter of a year. Yeah, pretty good.
13. This is episode 14, so now we just passed that. 52 weeks in a year. Mm-hmm. We did 13 episodes. That's a quarter of a year.
Yeah.
Good. Can't argue with that math.
And that doesn't even count the month before that, before we actually launched. Because now we're doing it where we're releasing one pretty much every week, the week we recorded it. But in the early days, there was a much more significant lag time.
Yeah, and people don't know this, but before we started recording the podcast, we were just doing them.
Yeah, we were. That's actually part of that. That's on this extensive
Oh, it's on the
list
sheet.
of
I'm
notes
sorry.
that I have. Yeah. No, it's fine. That's a little preview.
You're spilling all our secrets.
Oh,
Hophead
my
Huck.
No.
Oh,
I know it is kind of annoying when all the best parts are in the trailer, but that's not what we're doing. This is more of a teaser.
Yeah. The palm is going straight to my head here. But it
Exactly
is
where it
darn
belongs.
delicious. Darn delicious. So, yeah, I mean it's been a rough year, and it continues to be, and it will continue to be hard after the new year has passed. But yeah, like you said, you do have to look for the silver linings. You do have to look for those good things, or else and even laugh at your own misery sometimes, because otherwise you're going to be doing a whole lot of crying.
Indeed.
So
And I think for a lot of people, beer has been, at least in my circle and in our circle, beer has been one of those places where it's always been something to look forward to. It's always been a thing that there was some novelty in that. Even when the days maybe started to blend together, there was a new exciting beer to try or something like that. So it sort of helped a lot of people pace the time this year in a good way, and also give them those little sparks of joy, which is lovely.
yeah, and I think that the beer industry, especially the craft beer industry, did a really good job at adjusting.
Yeah,
because nothing's more social than drinking, right? With your friends, you go into bars, and when every single bar is closed, they had to act quickly and shift their focus. And I think a lot of these breweries didn't even miss a step. They're probably missing a little revenue.
Yeah,
but as far as getting beers to their customers, they've all done a lot to make that happen.
absolutely. Well, I think that's unless we have more tasting notes, I think that's as good a segue as any. Are we ready to start
Just
talking
reminding
about
me
our
of
years in
tastings, and I'm like, let me have some more.
I mean, I'm ready to hear about your highlights, all of your highlights for this year in beer.
Well,
yeah, I know. Yeah,
I tell you, I like to make lists. I like to make year-end lists. I've been doing it all my life. Last year, I was obsessed with albums. I was doing a top 20 albums of the year. And this year, since we've been so focused on beers, I'm making a beer list. So what I've done is I've broken it down to 8 categories. All right.
Okay.
A bit of a best in show kind of feel to it. Instead of dog breeds, we're talking about beer styles. Okay. Now I do get a little bit of pushback on because I'm like a superlative guy. Like I'm always saying that's the best thing, or I declare it. And thus it makes it true. In fact, last night I was we work for Beer Wonder, and I work for a beer touring company, and somebody put a message on the message board last night about what beer they were having, and said, "What are you guys having?" So I put up a beer that I was having, this Grim Lager, and I got a little conversation with the gentleman, a fellow coworker, and he's like, "Oh, that looks great." Oh yeah, I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, Grim." They make the best lagers in New York City. And he's like, he just immediately went like, whoa, okay, that's a strong statement. I have to try every beer that I can before I agree with it, but I'll take your word for it. And that's where I was like, okay, yeah, please take my word for it, because that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to tell you that I am the tastemaker. Okay. I am giving you my informed decision as a tastemaker.
You are Hophead Huck, aka the Pale Bale, aka Sourpuss. So you've got a lot of experience to go off of.
AKA the tastemaker. Well, I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use that, but I tend to think of myself as anyway. But what I've been doing, drinking a lot of lagers this year, so I feel pretty well informed about that. But I haven't been drinking as many of the other styles, which are ales, and I've cut back on ales more just for gastrointestinal reasons. But I still enjoy the taste of them, so I do have some ales to share, my best ales this year. So we'll start off with the hybrid ale. I haven't come up with a name for this, but a placeholder. This could end up being the name, is the Huckleberry Awards.
Now, Huck, just for our listeners who may not be, when you say a hybrid ale, is there something that you're specifically talking about in the brewing process there?
What happens with a hybrid ale is usually it's brewed as an ale and use ale yeast, and then it's lagered. And by lagered, it means it's stored cold for a period of time. So these ales are going to taste like lagers. Basically, it's two styles. It's the alt beer and it's the Kolsch.
Of course.
And I only had one alt beer and 2 Kolsches this year, so they all made the list.
Well, congratulations to all of them.
Suarez Brewing family made a lovely alt beer. So that came in third. Devil's Purse Handline Kolsch is kind of my go-to Cape Cod beer. If you go to the Cape, Devil's Purse, a nice little brewery there. And their Kolsch, you can find it in almost any bar. But the winner was the Torch and Crown Share House. The Share House.
Oh,
best hybrid.
Congratulations.
And let's hear it for Torch and Crown, who had a big year this year.
Big year. They just
did.
opened a downtown brewery, a big space, a tap room. They did it in the middle of a pandemic. It's still open. They're still going. They're still making great beer. They make all the styles well. But this Kolsch was a winner. I mean, great summer Kolsch. Had a bit of a hazy quality to it. Had that little bit of that American vibe to it. So because of Kolsch, well, we won't get into that. But anyway, there you go. That's your winner. Torch and Crown Share House. Then we moved to the IPA category, which is the most popular category in craft beer. Especially the New England IPA now is just you can't have a brewery unless you're making one. So I didn't have as many as I usually do, but I still enjoyed quite a few nice ones. So up the top three, District 96 Brewing, Fuzzy Math. I had that right here on the show, and I believe I shared that with you guys too at our last Beer Avenger meeting. That was really nice. They do great stuff up in New City, New York, just up the Hudson a bit. You can go back 4 episodes. We talk about a little more about them. A little bit of a surprise coming in at number 2. You may not be expecting this. KCBC made a collab with Vitamin C Brewing out of Massachusetts. Friends and Sea Anemones.
Oh.
Great hazy beer, IPA that I had at Milk and Hops, which is a sister bar to our sponsor, Astoria Beer and Cheese, which is located at
3511 Ditmars.
There you go.
In Astoria, Queens.
Milk and Hops is the Manhattan version of Astoria Beer and Cheese.
Yes, they're all individually owned, but they share some DNA. When we have Rick White on the show, he's going to explain it because I really don't get it entirely. But and I want to let you get on with your list, but I also want to affirm something you just said,
please,
if that's okay. I know I've given you pushback in the past on using the term best,
right?
But I think it's absolutely okay, considering the amount of sampling we do within this realm, for you to say best in New York City.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to say that this is the best lager in the world. It's impossible to say this is the best lager in the country.
Right.
I think for that, you have to say favorite. Best in New York City, have at it. I'm all behind you.
I think when I say it's the best that has passed through these lips is and not every beer makes it to the lips. Nor can it.
Right.
It's impossible.
Especially now. Yeah.
Like the Simpsons when he tried to hypnotize the baseball team, Mr. Burns, and he said, "You must give 110%," and they all responded, "We can only give 100%. It is virtually impossible to." Okay. Anyway,
I just want to acknowledge that was an excellent deep cut. Well done, Huck. Thank you. Appreciate that.
The classic baseball episode. Top winner though, Other Half Brewing, Small Riwaka Everything was the winner this year. Pure cantaloupe, honeydew vibe coming out of the glass from the Riwaka hops out of New Zealand. It was just such a surprising beer. And it came, as soon as I drank it, I said, why aren't I drinking IPAs all the time? So it really brought me back. So thank you for that, Other Half.
Well, you're always welcome back to IPA land, Huck.
I'm always
just
coming
FYI.
back. I have too many in the house right now, actually. I could break one.
I like to spend some time there myself.
In the sour category, we have, let's see, number 3 was Grimm's Future Days. Lovely dry hopped sour, a lot of hoppiness to it. Really delicious. Second place, this thing was great. We did this at a Beer Avengers meeting with Mother Pucker and Cider Girl and the Non.
To be introduced soon,
unknown
yes.
Beer Avenger.
Yes.
But
is that spelled like the bread, like the Indian bread?
No, NNON.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not an official name. It's a placeholder. But we had the Fox Farm Anata, which was a grape farmhouse ale, which was just delightful. Really great. But, of course, the winner, I got it right here. Daily Serving.
All right.
Daily
it's
Serving.
in your glass right now.
In my glass right now. This is my ale of the year. I should have said that before I I forgot about the stout category.
No, I like that you buried the lead there.
Buried the lead in the lead. Best stout. Of course, this is another one where I have not had a lot of stouts. Captain would be better suited to make these declarations. But as far as stouts I had, Black is Beautiful was an episode we did this year. Really great program. And for me, the Wild East Belgian stout was just, it was so fun. I had it on Thanksgiving Day, and as soon as you open it, it starts to come out of the can. It's like climbing out. You pour it in a glass, it's climbing up the sides of the can. It's just like all this yeastiness happening with the Belgian yeast, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
Just a fun beer. It was fun,
and I feel like kind of unexpected within that category. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when you open that beer, it is like opening a present.
Well, it's like you were talking last week. That didn't you say that there was the thrush? You're talking about there was a brewery that did a sour stout.
Hermit Thrush. Yes,
Hermit Thrush. It's great when people get creative.
Oh yeah, so fun. And so speaking of which, another beer that I shared with y'all when we were in Queens, the other half Marshall's Crest, which was part of the Freaky Friday series, where they brewed the Marshall's Crest, which is a beer by Horace Ales in California. And they did, other half did their recipe.
Is that the one with the bird of prey on the label?
Correct. Yeah, it was like with marshmallows and almonds, I believe. It was a great beer. But the winner was a beer called Ashlawn, Fox Farm Ashlawn Coffee Stout. Oh, that was it.
Oh yeah, that was a great one.
I gave one to you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was. I appreciate that.
Just coffee oozing off the nose. Yeah. Just on your lips, just coffee, coffee, and I just love that so much. And I still have a can. I would drink it today, but I'm doing the 7-month on that one. So I think like May or June we're gonna crack that. It's gonna be a beautiful thing.
That will be exciting.
Oh, there you go. Those are my ales of the year. So I have my lagers of the year, but I think that took up a good enough segment. So we can.
You want to save the lagers for later?
Let's save them. Yeah.
I say, just like all lagers are made, right? You save them.
That's right. Lagers take longer.
I in a moment, I think we should move on to Beer Wonder, but I see we have another comment.
Oh,
my goodness. Very exciting.
Watchers on it is from someone by the name of Bricken. Have you ever heard a name like that before?
I have.
Yeah. Oh, you have.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
It sounds a little familiar. But it's not really a question.
She's my Facebook friend.
It's like when you're in when you're doing children's theater and you ask the kids for questions and they don't really know. But anyway, but this is a comment. It's just I like ciders.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Well, we did have a visit from one of our Beer Avenger fans named Cider Girl.
I think she and Bricken should meet.
They should. I feel
whoever this Bricken person is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bricken is also saying, "Why wait to drink a stout?
To age it, to cellar it." Okay, so that's actually a really good question. I think, and you guys, I know what I like, and I can describe what I'm tasting, and I know that something is good. But you guys have spent a little more time in the professional world, so maybe one or both of you elaborate on the merits of cellaring.
Well, so I feel like the general rule of thumb is you generally want to generally want to drink a beer fresh, because fresh beer is always the best. But the longer you let a beer sit, you can get sort of a mellowing of the flavors, and a higher alcohol beer is going to bring out some additional kind of interesting flavors that come through with malt. Now, malt is the thing that is always will survive a resting period or a lagering period or an aging process. So if you have a really hop forward beer, like all of those IPAs that Huck was not drinking this year, but I was taking care of, don't worry about that. You want to drink those as fresh as possible, but a higher alcohol beer, you'll get interesting new flavor development that comes not only from residual yeast, but also from the grain itself. So that's why you might cellar a beer, because the flavors will change and will develop and will harmonize a little bit more as time goes on.
So should your guidelines be the ABV? So like, for instance, say if you have a really high ABV double IPA, does that age well too?
Yeah, I think a double IPA.
Yeah, because double IPAs they can get up into that like 10% range.
I think they will last longer, but it's probably not best to age them.
Yeah, because the hops are going to wear off quickly. So the malt, if it's a really malt forward beer, then it's very exciting to let it age, and if it is higher alcohol, it can age. Which is why you see like barley wines that have been aged in a whiskey barrel or bourbon barrels, or even Big Alice has been doing some cool stuff with tequila barrels, which I am missing and excited to try once we're back to normal. But it's the higher level of alcohol and the lower level of hops tend to be a good combination for.
Okay, so it's not just the ABV; it's the IBU.
Yes.
So if it's a
well, and if you're highlighting the flavor of the hops, I mean, unfortunately, I put the Captain and the Huck through an unfortunate experience of a slightly off hopped beer incident when I was very excited about a IPA I'd forgotten in the fridge, but we don't talk about that. Where you could absolutely tell that the hops had turned, where something like those stouts that you've been aging for a long time, since they're not relying on the hops for the flavor, they're relying on the development of the grain flavors. They'll become more harmonized and more interesting as time goes forward.
Very good. Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because most of the things that I buy are kind of cellarable by default.
Right.
So I'm curious to know which things, slip under the cracks.
My understanding is that if they have a lot of adjuncts, we just talked about that. If there's like a lot of marshmallows and that sort of thing in it, that might be one that you don't want to age as much as like if you have the like Heavy Boots of Lead. You got this 2019 cans are another thing. It's better to cellar them in bottles. But with this can, that's a year-old beer, they're telling you, right?
Yeah.
So you could hold that can for another year, I think, and still get good flavors out of it.
I think they're still available, so I should probably go and get
Go get another one and save it for a year. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
And Captain, where might you go and get this can? Is there any specific store where you might look for a fancy beer that you might want to cellar?
Well, I mean, aside from Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars,
well, that was the one I was thinking of.
3511 Ditmars. I'm gonna. In fact, once I'm gonna give you a shot at what your segment is in this, and then I will probably my next beer will probably be directly related to aging and Astoria Beer and Cheese.
Hey, look at that!
I'm gonna tease that.
Okay.
Ooh,
right. But which seems like a perfect segue to Beer Wonder. Tell us about your year in beer.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. I enjoy hanging out with all of our Beer Avenger friends, but especially the Captain and Huck, because you guys exposed me to a bunch of beers. Because if I had my way, I would just literally drink IPAs all day long, constantly, directly from the fermenters. Like, I don't even want it to hit a conditioning tank. I just want all the hops in there. So one of the things that this sort of like trio, and then all of our other friends from Cider Girl to Mother Pucker to the Belgian Blonde and the Belgian, everyone who's sort of everybody who's sort of joined our band pushed me out there. But for me, while I love beer and I love trying different kinds of beer and the uniqueness that comes in that, for me, beer is always about social. It's always about people, and it's always about experiences that beer lend themselves to. And so what I compiled is sort of a different take on this, is my 5 best beer moments of 2020. And usually it would be a list of a million, because, Beer Avengers meetings would be happening regularly at the Pony Bar. We would be doing our booklets or our passports and moving around the city. We'd be regularly hanging out at the bar where Huck used to work. But of course, this year was a little bit different. So I wanted to hit 5 really noteworthy moments in beer for me this year, and what I drank, because I feel like that's appropriate. And to the shock of no one, I was covering Huck's end of the IPAs on this one. So don't worry about that. So I'm going back to the beginning of the year. The first really notable social beer moment for me was, I'm going to say, our last Before Times Beer Avengers meeting, which was trivia up at Arts and Crafts.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, that's on my list too.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I want to hear
fabulous.
what you have to say about it.
I mean, it was just one of those great moments where it reminded me of what beer is supposed to be about. Beer historically has been something that has brought people together. Even after the Black Plague, when there was a rebellion against the church in England, people came together over beer in public houses, which created pubs, which created bar culture. And so for me, bar culture has always been a major part of why I love drinking beer. I love the taste, I love the flavors, but I love being with people in a space and getting to hang out and relax over my favorite beverage. We did fairly well that night, if I recall correctly. I
know we won a book.
We got a book. I don't know who has the book.
Last I heard, the Belgian Babe, yes.
Gotcha.
Because both of the Belgians were there.
Yes.
But the Belgian Babe, I think, still has it in her possession.
Well, that's good. I will have to get a report from her at some point on how it
Yes.
went. But it was, it's a picture that has shown up on Facebook, and it was sort of a reminder for me about what the beer venturing was before we lived in this sort of weird, unique 2020 time. And I looked back on what I drank that night, and based on what I remember, I was primarily drinking the single cut 18-watt IPA, although I had quite a few of them.
Yeah, it's our happy hour beer, yeah.
Yes, so I might have mixed it up there, but always a delicious beer, one of a solid IPA that is always a go-to when I'm just feeling like I want to grab something interesting or something fun. So then, things got interesting. And as I've mentioned in the past, one of my big sort of forays into beer beyond just drinking it was that as a tour guide, I decided that I was going to become a beer tour guide. And I started working with City Brew Tours, which is the largest provider of craft beer experiences in North America. And I had been doing tours, and that was a part of the first 2 months of the year. And then everything kind of went flat. And come April, they moved to virtual experiences, and they asked me to come back and start to lead those. And it was really kind of fun because all of a sudden I got to go be social with people about beer again. And this was public experiences. It was people who were beer nerds who signed up. And so I was getting to all of a sudden meet beer nerds from all over the country and see what kind of fun stuff that they had and sort of just do kind of what we do here, shoot the shit a little bit about beer, which was awesome. And so I remember the first one that I got thrown onto was back in April. I was very nervous. I did not know what I was stepping into because I am a beer nerd, but not at the nerd level of many. But I had a little note about that one and because I planned out what I was going to talk about, and I checked my beer, and we had so much fun. And the beer I was drinking for that one was one that I've shared here on the beer cast, but is one that I definitely love, which is the Five Boroughs Tiny Juicy IPA, which was a beer that I could drink, talk about flavor-wise, but not get totally trashed on, so I still made sense for the full hour, which, is an important part of beer tourism.
I think we're going over an hour today.
That's okay. Well, it's a 2-beer show, I think.
Yes. It's fitting in the whole year.
Yes. So that was number 2, and that has been a great source of joy for beer with me and the opportunity to meet people from all over. Shout out to everybody. I randomly get a lot of people from Ohio who have basically given me a full list of places that when the Beer Avengers eventually unite in Ohio, we should stay for a month because there's enough to drink in the state of Ohio that I think will be well set during that time.
We have a following there.
Yes, we do.
Do you tell them about the Beer Avengers?
Oh yes, many of them I hope are going to be listening on to.
Like I said, they are. I've said before, and I'll again a little more of a little teaser. They are our second biggest following.
Excellent. So then for me, the next sort of big one that hit was actually a Beer Avengers meeting, an important Beer Avengers meeting, which was one of the first times that we met up during this, which was our Adventures in Astoria Park. And this, I think, happened, was it August or around? Honestly, the memory here is a little hazy.
I think it was in mid to late August.
Mm-hmm. I can't get it.
It's actually the picture that you see when you go to our Podbean site. The one that you see that comes up right there, it's also on our Facebook page, is from the meeting he's talking about. Yeah.
And it was the first time we had all gotten together in the middle of all of this. And, I was still questionable. We were meeting closer to Captain Porter Brown Stout's location and Hophead Huck and the Cider Girl and have their own unique transportation. I wound up taking a ferry to get there. So I had a beautiful view of the city. And then we went to the park and we had a bunch of beers. And it was back to this bar culture thing that I love that was sort of really kind of cool to recreate. And, it's not been the last of these meetings, but it's been notable for me as one of the big highlights of my year in beer.
Very notable for me as well.
Yes, it was a big one, for sure, I think for a lot of us. And I'll be honest, when I went to go look back at what I drank there, I don't remember it. And that probably means we had a good Beer Avengers meeting.
Yeah.
Tends to be what that is. Number 4 was the first time that I visited a brewery, which happened closer to September this year. In our New York City area, where I actually went to a brewery and got something to drink at the brewery. Most of what I'd been doing was sort of a grab and go situation. And I went to go visit my buddies over at Strong Road Brewing Company, which is in Gowanus. And for that one, I had the Tenacity of Cones and Binds. I believe another one I've shared here on the podcast, but one of my favorite of their delicious IPAs. And it was good to sort of just check in and see how everybody was doing, which was really exciting.
And so that was in September?
That was in September. Yep.
Okay.
And then the last one is actually sort of a future thing, which has been that which is with my dad. So my father lives in Minnesota, and I live in our undisclosed location. And one of the ways that we have kind of connected over all of this, and it's a way to sort of keep in touch and have a reason to keep talking, is about beer, because he has found a place to Zoom with all of his beer buddies once a week and try out fun beers. And so for the holidays, he and I have been connecting over a beer a day regiment. And so this evening for New Year's, we'll be cracking open the next beer that's coming out. And while I wish I could tell you what I drank during that, I don't know, because I have not opened our blind box to see what is in there. So cheers to you, Dad. We've got something fun headed into 2020. So those are my 5 notable moments in beers, excluding probably the most notable all, which has been the Beer Avengers podcast and being able to chat about beers with all of you once a week.
Yeah.
So cheers to 2020.
Cheers
Cheers
indeed.
to
That's
2020.
great. I realized I looked at my photos. I don't have a picture from that day.
See,
I'd have
But
to
that's what I'm
check
saying.
with Cider Girl.
But
She'll have
if you
something.
look at the picture on the Podbean, that is our
Yep.
that like the thing. It's also on our teaser trailer.
Mhm.
It's from that day.
Yes, but I think that was part 2 of what
Was it really?
we're talking about. I believe so.
I-
October. I do have that one, October 11th.
Okay, that was a good one too. But I thought the one. Okay, well,
Yeah, no, we could say that.
you may be right. I'll.
But-
I may be
I'll-
crazy.
again, sometimes
They were
when-
both great. They were both great
Yeah.
times, whatever they
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
And sometimes when a Beer Avengers meeting happens, sometimes you beer venge enough that you can't remember what you
Yeah.
drank. And honestly, oftentimes that is an indication that we did a good job.
My vague sense is that we were already recording at that point, but we hadn't released anything.
Fair enough.
Oh, wait a minute. I think we have a. Oh, okay. We just got a text a message from one of the Belgians
Okay.
is that the one where the 3 of us were posing by the tree
Hmm.
was in fact the later one.
All right.
Yeah, I had this weird thought that we were already recording, but we hadn't released, and we had that picture and put it out in the world. And I think I saw Huck just go for another beer.
We got a second
So
pour.
I'm gonna get my second pour while you're introducing your second pour, and then I will start my year in beer.
Perfect. Well, this is I was just talking about it. This is a Grim Lithos,
Hey. Ooh,
the Schwartz beer, black lager.
delicious.
Delish. Now, I did have one of these near the early. I think I had it in June, even though it was a
Mhm.
February beer, but it was my first draft beer that I had since the pandemic started, and it was fabulous. But this canned one is great. This is fresh from this month, so
And in a perfect glass for this. And look at that dark color, which again is not something that we often expect with a beer that's going to have the body that I imagine this one's going to have.
yeah.
But also good carbonate,
Oh,
good
that's
carbonation
pretty.
on that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, it's roasty.
that was a Grim Lithos.
Lithos, it's called.
Very good.
And as always with Grimm, I just want to compliment them consistently on interesting can art. Just really
Great
interesting can art.
yeah. This is me posing again. There we go.
I got you.
Excellent.
I got you.
I'm trying harder this week.
I actually have not taken a single screenshot, but I hopefully we have a. This is too much. This is production meeting stuff for all our live audience, and
That's okay.
I'm gonna leave it in. But yeah,
I was
the
gonna say,
idea
we'll
how
edit
we
that
do the
out, but no matter.
screenshots. I don't know if anyone gives a single fuck about that, but there is a. Send us an email if you really want to know.
I mean, something about a black lager that's made so
Mhm.
well like this is just so refreshing and at the
Mhm.
same time hearty. You know,
Yeah.
it's light drinking, has that light, almost Pilsner like quality to the mouthfeel, but then it just has that nice bite going down the throat, that hearty. I think they use chocolate malts, so they're using those darker malts, and it's just
Mhm.
really, really well done. Really well done.
I think that's one of the best things about the black lager / Schwartz beer
Mhm.
is that it is hearty and light at the same time.
Yeah. You would like this
it's
quite a
got-
lot.
It's got a rich flavor, but it doesn't drag you down.
It's a little bit stronger for it's 5.3. It's not super
Oh,
strong,
okay.
but yeah, nice.
That's bold still.
Yeah,
5's a minimum for me, so yeah, I can totally get behind that. No, I mean, because one of the earlier ones you had was the Grim Seconds,
Yes.
which I still need to try because that's one of those ones. And like I looked at it's just one of those drinkable all day beers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was 3.8%. It was very
yeah.
low. Yeah.
Well, to go to the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to bring in my second
Please.
pour.
Oh boy.
And I'm not going to talk extensively about it because it's part of the story I'm about to tell in my year in beer. But this I got in like March or April.
Oh.
Maybe late March, maybe early April, somewhere in that spectrum, probably late March. It is the Perennial Abraxas
Oh, yeah.
Vintage 2019. Perennial is from St. Louis, Missouri, so shout out to Nutpool on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just
Yeah, I have had this. We had it at the bar last year, and it's delicious. I must have had the same one, 2019.
yeah, well, this is
See, this is what I expect from you, Captain.
Oh.
Like this is, although it's pouring more quickly than I would have anticipated.
And the head just takes a second to develop. It's very
it's
light,
there.
very
yeah,
light.
it's there, but it's subtle.
Yeah. Oh, that looks beautiful.
Gorgeous beer.
And
the best
and yeah,
stout
should
in
I-
America.
Cheers.
yes, cheers.
Cheers, yeah.
And I guess is it time for me to start my year in beer?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. I'll get to how this fits into the whole story. Yesterday, I printed out some spreadsheet stuff about Beer Avengers and the podcast, which I'll get to eventually. But because the way I had it formatted, you can barely read it, so I had a lot of white space on these papers. So so what I decided to do was just take all my notes about my year in beer. I spent like 2 hours doing this last night. What I did was I went to Untapped, and when that was not good for me, then I'd switch over to Facebook and try and dig around in there. At some point, it was just my own profile. Other times, it was a group I was involved in, and and then I probably looked at our shows a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to get started. So I'm going to go slightly more than a year ago because I think the first 3 months of what the story you're about to hear is, as we all know, changed a lot. At the beginning, late last year, Beer Wonder and I had our they weren't beer passports, but they were the beer books.
The beer books, yes. From
And
Brooklyn.
we were, as we always do in December, we're always, except for this year, obviously. As we always do in December, we have these books that we've been meaning to use, and we want to try and rid as many coupons as we can. And Beer Wonder is always there with me, said, okay, what don't you have? Oh, you've already gotten that one? I'll join you for a beer there. And we met at Bridge and Tunnel. And mentioned a little earlier about how this year, we often talk about years that are marked in tragedy. This year was defined by tragedy. So it's going to take a place here every once in a while. I was getting a call as I was meeting Beer Wonder about a family thing that was going on for me. But we had a beer. I think you went to Evil Twin first that night, didn't you?
I did, yes.
I
had prepared myself.
We met there. I got a phone call from my sister, and I was sort of working through some of that. And we had a couple of nice beers. We had our wonderful yearly New Year's Eve celebration at the home of Hophead Huck and Cider Girl. And we did our usual thing we do every year that year. And the thing in my family had escalated to the point where 3 days later, I was on a plane to Idaho. And so some of my very first beers that I have logged on to Untapped are, weirdly, I had to go to Dallas to get to Idaho. and so my very first beers after our New Year's Eve celebration was at a barbecue place in the Dallas airport. And then there were some at the Idaho airport. And then there were some more at the Denver airport on my way back that I got waylaid in. I had way too many beers there. And then I came back, and probably one of the first places I went to was a Story Beer and Cheese. And I think there was a bar I went to at the Hudson Yards because I was going there for a movie screening. And I said, let's check this out. So I went there, that whole new crazy thing they have there with the beehive structure. But one of the first one after that was at Story Beer and Cheese. I went there a few times. And then in late January, my father came here to New York, and we took a trip to Australia for a couple plus weeks. The one that followed me around everywhere there was a brewery called White Rabbit and their dark ale. And every time I saw it, it was great because I have to, no disrespect in case anyone ever starts listening to us in Australia, Huck, you'd love it there because they love their lagers.
Yeah.
And I can enjoy a good lager, but I started to see a bit of a sameness there. In fact, there was even one place when I was in Cairns, after being on the Great Barrier Reef and snorkeling and seeing all that stuff. There was I can't remember where she was from. I want to say somewhere like, Oregon or Washington or Illinois. I don't know, somewhere on that side of the country. And she was saying, yeah, it's Australia. It's all lagers here. But that was not always the case when I went to a brewery. I went to a few different breweries there. And every time I went there, I'd find something that I really liked. The last one I went to was in Adelaide. My dad and I had been on a winery tour that day, and we had stuff. And I noticed this one place, and this fits in with something that really became prominent in our year in beer was social activism. And the brewery, it was actually a brew pub in a hotel that was pretty much run by this brewery. And I wrote it down. It's called Spark Change.
Oh.
SPARKKE. It's an Australian brewery. It's run by women. I also wrote it down because the beer I had there defines my taste in beer. Just by the title alone, it was called Hello Dark Stout, My Old Friend.
That definitely sounds like you.
And then before I knew it, we're back here. One of the first ones I had as dry beer and cheese was the Swift Water Coffee Stout, which will become relevant. It's a really good beer, but become relevant in this whole story. And it's not long after that. You mentioned this before, Beer Wonder. Our date at Arts and Crafts was on February 23rd.
Ah.
It was us, it was Cider Girl, and both of the Belgians. And we had some wonderful beers. I didn't write down which ones they were, but the story is getting long enough as it is. And in March 14th, I think it was, I had my last beer sitting down at Astoria Beer and Cheese, and the Belgian blonde recently tried this beer and thought it was very fitting for 2020. And it was strange seeing that was one of the last beers I had there. It was called, it was the Big Alice Behold True Sorrow. Sort of an omen of what was to come. And I think a couple days later, the next day I did actually have another indoor beer at at Solid State, which is a wonderful beer bar in, I'm going to say Woodside, and I know that the Belgian babe will correct me if I'm wrong, because she lives in Woodside. It's walking distance from where she is, but I lose track of where Woodside and Sunnyside and whatever meets together. But anyway, so that was the last place, and the guy knew. He's like, yeah, this is no, there was no one in there. And he was saying, yeah, they're gonna shut down indoor tomorrow. And he was right. And that's when we all went inside. And I don't have a lot of stuff for April and for the most of March and April, except that at some point at the end of March, I got my second case from Tavor. I got that case from Tavor, and it's weird. I felt like once the thing happened, within 2 weeks, everyone was doing virtual cocktail parties, but we were a little late to that party, I think. Mm-hmm. Because by my records, our first virtual Beer Avengers meeting was on April 13th.
That checks out.
Does that sound right?
Seems right, yeah.
That's when I first started sharing some of that Tavor crate. And it's funny, we had so many of those meetings. I think I went through most of that crate. I mean, it was like a couple of months. We were meeting every week.
Yeah.
And then, people got busy, and eventually it wasn't enough. And that's why we started meeting, having those other meetings. But I was just recently going through all of my stuff there. And now I need to backtrack to tell the story. I said, this is a high ABV beer. So this is what I was talking about with the story of Beer and Cheese. that one I had at the mid-March was the last one I had sitting down. By the next week, they had announced, I think, that they were shutting down indoor dining. I think by Wednesday, and Rick White at Story Beer and Cheese, he even did it a day early. I went in there and I respected that. But I wanted to, at that point, we knew I knew I was on unemployment, and I knew we were all getting an extra $600 a week. And this all felt to all of us like this is going to be over in a couple of months. Mm-hmm. So I was there. I'm like, okay, I know things are rough for you, so I'm going to just spend money. And I was like getting cheese I hadn't gotten before, and I was getting a baguette, and I was like just trying to load up with, also thinking that it's coming really quick when we're not going to be able to go outside, because Huck was doing all these beer orderings from all these
I remember that.
different places, and one of the beers I got on that initial run was the perennial Abraxas 2019. So when I was looking at my refrigerator to say, what can I do to commemorate all this, this just had that specific moment in my head.
Yeah,
which is why I wanted to have this one. So we had all of our. Okay, now I'm really going along with this. I know, but I did also want to briefly talk about June and July, or more July and August. July and August was when our friend, who's going to be on the show next week, the Incredulous Bulk, he does these amazing crawls in Dayton, Ohio every year. I've been to 2 of them. And this year he decided to have a virtual version of it where people would just check in their beers online.
Nice.
And I had not, because of that initial scare when no one was wearing masks, but the numbers were starting to go down and outside was a little more safe and everyone was being really careful and outdoor dining was allowed. Inspired by all those things together, I started biking to breweries. And so I obviously walked over to Single Cut, which I'd done already. LIC Beer Project, Big Alice, Iconic, Fifth Hammer. My last visit to the former John Brown. They have a new one. Don't be too mournful about that. And also Rockaway.
Right.
And those are, and eventually also Evil Twin and Bridge and Tunnel. I went to all of those on a city bike. And what else do I have here about that? Oh, also, so now I'm going to jump forward even further because I feel like a lot of the stuff, we're getting to the point where a lot of stuff has been covered on the last 13 episodes. And
yeah, I've covered a lot.
And if you've listened to that, you know it already. If you haven't, they're all available for download. So go back, check out our back catalog.
You really should. They're good shows.
But one thing where all this connects is we talk about days that were great, and our virtual and our literal meetings were the real highlight. I mean, virtual meetings really, really added to things, but the once we started actually meeting each other, those were great. And another real highlight was the Saturday after Election Day. The Saturday after Election Day was when the last state got called, not the last one, but enough states got called that it was clear we were getting rid. I'm going to say his name, Donald Trump. It's strange that we don't want to even say that name, but we don't. But we knew we were getting rid of him, and I was with the Belgian Babe, and I had a special beer I'd gotten from that trip I was talking about, the Rockaway Brewery. Rockaway Brewery was called the Bungalow. It's a pastry stout. Looks like a champagne bottle. And we got that and we cracked that and we went to a Story Beer and Cheese in the backyard. It was more crowded than it had been, but it was still safe. And there was just some point when Rick White came in the backyard and everybody cheered, and it was just such an incredible fucking uniting moment.
Nice.
And yeah, we started publishing these on October 5th.
Wow.
I feel like at this point I've talked long enough. I want to talk about some of the Beer Avenger stats, but I feel you need a little bit of a shift in perspective, and maybe it's time for the second half of Huck's list.
The Huckleberry Awards.
The Huckleberry Awards. I want to hear more about that.
We've given our awards to the ales. Now we want to talk about the lagers. Now this is where I feel that I'm more informed. Of course, my lagers have been drank in New York, and I've gotten a hold of a couple of good ones from Massachusetts as well, my home state, and some from Vermont. but we're talking about the Northeast, really, where we can get. But I do feel like I was telling, what's the woman's name? Cider Girl. I was saying, she's right, she's standing next to me. I was saying that what I do, I know there's a lot of vloggers out there, but it's like the marathon. You let the front runners up in the front, and that's where I'm getting my beers, from those guys that are running in the front. I already know they're top notch runners. There may be other ones in the back that I don't know about that I might have missed. It could be true, but basically, let's start with Fest beers. Best Fest, fun. Fest. I did actually manage to have quite a few Oktoberfest beers this year. They're also sometimes known as Marzens, but today the Fest beers are a type of Helles. Anyway, coming in at number 3, District 96, Coat of Arms.
Ooh, good choice.
Lovely Fest beer. Number 2, Grimm, of course. Festooning. A lovely Oktoberfest beer. But the winner comes from northern New Hampshire, a brewery that I only discovered this year, even though they've been around for about 9 years, is Schilling. Schilling Brewing Company from Littleton, New Hampshire. Constantine was their fest beer.
Yeah, I've noticed you're really into them. I look forward to having more of those.
Yeah, I think I said last week we went all the way down to East Village to get more of the Schilling.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad they're here because they just really add so much to the landscape down here as far as lagers. Because, we're IPA crazy, and a lot of bars and even bottle shops will be much more hop forward than having the lagers. So they're a little harder to find. All right, so there's your Marzen. Going to the pale lager category. Well, let me start, actually. Let's go to Pilsners because they're a pale lager too. But best Pilsner coming in at number 3. Boy, this is tough. I'm even making the decision at the last moment. Trillium Pilsner.
All right.
Just so solid and so delicious out of Boston. And then I'm going to say Suarez, the Palatine Pils. I was worried about saying best of, knowing that I hadn't had enough Suarez, and because they're a great lager house out of New York State, and I did get a case of them at the end of the year here, so we just made it under the wire. Way to go, Suarez! You belong in this same class for sure. And number 1, strangely enough, I only managed to get 1 can of this beer, but it was the best Pilsner I had this year. Foam Brewing out of Burlington, Vermont.
Yes.
The Tasman Sun. Very low ABV beer, about 4.7. Literally the most delicious Pilsner I had this year. And I've had a lot. And that foam, I was so glad to have it. Sometimes I still think about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I only had the 1 can. But I love foam. They're great. So there you go, Pilsner category. So then we leave the rest of the pale lagers, which is a wider category, but I'm putting them all in together. A lot of Hudson Valley here. To me was, for lagers, this was the coming out party for the Hudson Valley Brewing Company because they're known for the sour IPA. It's almost like they invented the sour IPA. The American, it's made with usually a lot of fruit and a lot of milk sugar. So they kind of they're actually a little too much for me now. 2-3 years ago, I was really preaching the sour IPA from Hudson Valley. Still delicious. They still make them. It's just I need to have a lighter beer these days. But I still would like to get a hold of a couple to try them. But they're making lagers like magic. And I put it on one of my Facebook groups, like, what are they doing up there? Somebody suggested it was the water and the Hudson Valley, something about it. But yeah, they just make magical lagers. So a lot of them are on my list. Cadence was a Helles lager, foretelling, one called Capsule 1. And the winner, though, was one called Willow Blade, which was a really interesting lager made with sushi rice and wildflower honey.
Wow.
I was just like, because rice lagers, we talk about, that's kind of mentioned as a bad thing in craft beer circles because of all the big ones, the Budweiser, Miller, they're all rice lagers. Right. But this was a specifically artisanal rice lager that was just fabulous. And actually, they just put out a second batch. It's available now. Cool. Look for it in your local bottle shop. Then where do we go? Then we go to dark lagers. Coming in at number 3, Grimm Maypole. They made a Maibach that was just stunning Maibach. If you're into Maibachs, I also had one from Single Cut as an honorable mention. They made with elderberries, really nice.
I remember that
Maibach.
one, yeah.
Number 2, this one the captain would have loved. It was called The Goat.
The Goat, greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. And the goat, it was a Bock, it was a double Bock. But the word Bock is a type of beer, but it also means goat in German. So it's often used as a play on words. If you see a lot of Bocks in German Bocks, you'll see a goat on the label. So this was called the Goat from Evil Twin NYC, a Doppelbock, which was just perfect. It was a perfect Doppelbock. But coming into the winter, who would have thunk it? Right here, Grim Lethal. Again, the beer I'm drinking.
It's almost like it was planned.
They often say the best beer you have is the one in your hand.
Very true.
And that's
well played, sir.
There you go. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Appreciate your indulgence.
Before we can. I just want to address something else here. Stephen, who is watching, mentioned that Abraxas, which is it looks like if he spells it slightly differently, is also the name of a Santana album.
Aha! Oh. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Although he spells it with an Abraxis, and this one they spell it with an AS.
They spell it with an A. That's right.
Yeah.
Very good.
I just, we don't have a whole lot of people who are watching this live, so I want to acknowledge the people who are taking time to comment.
I missed that comment somehow.
Well, and perhaps these Huckleberry Awards is what we're calling them. Yes, it can become an annual thing here with the Beer Avengers.
That means I'm going to have to keep it up. I'm going to have to keep drinking.
I know. Well, God bless. We will support you in that.
Well, I was saying to there's a guy on the West Coast. We should have him on the show. Actually, his name is Brew Guy Phil. And
okay, is he on our Instagram group? Is he there?
Instagram. He's on Instagram.
Okay.
You can follow him. He's a very well-spoken guy who is really, really knowledgeable on beer. And we were together at a conference in Seattle, zoo conference.
Nice.
My wife works for the zoo. And so we're at this great party at the zoo, and they had beer. All these different breweries came for the conference, and we were having some of the best beer. We were having such a good time. And there was another brewery. And then one of the things we don't like to do is put down breweries, right? Like craft brewers, especially. We don't want them to say, "Oh, their shit sucks." We don't want to do any of that. But there was a brewery at the zoo, and I was like, "Yeah, I just didn't like that one too much. I kind of feel bad." And he stopped me right away. He says, "No, Huckleberry. We are the gatekeepers. We are the arbiters of taste. You must be diligent." I just took that like, yes, okay, good. I like that validation.
And you're in trouble when he goes for the full Huckleberry.
Yes.
That's right.
If it's just, hey, come on, Huck. No, Huckleberry, listen to me. Like
Huckleberry Ted.
Everybody's mom.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks. So yeah, he's a great guy. We got to have him on. Yeah.
Yeah,
we should. I know we have some other New Beers resolutions come up, but I do want to acknowledge to have a few thank yous to everyone. Well, first of all, I think it's interesting in I need to readjust these numbers, but so these numbers these numbers represent the first 13 episodes.
Okay.
We have had beers from 42 different breweries.
Whoa!
And I think we even added a couple tonight, definitely with Perennial.
Nice.
42 different breweries, 24 of which are from New York.
All right.
Which I think really is it's just over the 50% mark. So we started out really trying to favor local. We still are local, just not always are local. We've got 24 from New York, and the second place is Vermont with 4.
How about that?
Oh, there you go.
2 from Massachusetts, 3 from Michigan, 1 from Ohio, 1 from Pennsylvania. Everyone else is a 1 except Maryland. Maryland has 2.
Oh,
okay.
But we have California. Well, you had the one from Ontario.
Yes. Well, which also kind of crosses because they're kind of in Brooklyn too, but that's okay.
Are they really? Is that why we get them here?
Well, Collective Arts, they have a tap room, if I'm not mistaken, Huck, right?
Yeah,
down in the Gowanus area.
Just opened, yeah.
Okay. Because there was a thing early on. I almost mentioned it in my year in beer, but I thought it was getting too long. That one of the very first beers that I had when Astoria Beer and Cheese reopened, because I think I missed that in the whole. Like I said, I was editing because I was like, this is going too long. But they were one of the first places that when everyone else was doing takeout, they said, no, we need to shut down and regroup. Due to some of the tragedy, the elements I was talking about. Well, honestly, I shouldn't say why. I'm saying these are things that happened. Things that were happening was no one knew what to make of all the fucking shit that was going on.
Right.
There were also a few individual tragedies that I'm not going to mention specifically because I don't know those people that well, and it's not my place to talk about it too much. But all those things combined to make Rick, it looks like Rick just said, let's take a step back. And they closed for like a couple of months. And when they reopened, it was takeout only. And one of the first beers I had when I was back was the one we were talking about a while ago. Here it is. It's the Swiftwater coffee one.
Oh yeah, it was last week.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago.
Swiftwater coffee stout. But one of the ones I had shortly thereafter was Collective Arts. The one you're talking about. It was there. It's called All These Things. And when on our very first episode, I said I've got a bunch of things. One's from Canada, and you guys all said, "Ooh." And so it's funny that we featured one from them since then. But yeah, it was
they got their
nice
Brooklyn hipster cred for sure. Now that they're in Gowanus,
but it really was nice to see them come back in June and come back in a bigger way. And tonight, about a half hour before we started recording this, I went there, and there was a line.
That's good to know.
And we've talked a lot about the last couple of weeks about how it's tough for small businesses, and it still is, but they actually did pass the relief package the other day.
Yep.
Not as much as any of us wanted, but hopefully it's going to get some of the PPP to the small businesses out there.
Now, that's another thing about not traveling, as far as making a judgment. Like I go to California usually 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And I try beers out there, and I haven't been since last a year. It's been just over a year since I went to California.
And my last travel was the Australia trip that I got back from it in February.
Yeah, and I did travel this year to Uganda, which is pretty specific.
I think that was actually right after my Australia trip. That's
was around the same time.
For us all, we had both done that when we had that wonderful meeting we talked about at Arts and Crafts.
Yeah, and then we traveled just in time. We did have some interesting beers in Uganda. They actually brew a Guinness there, which is like an export stout, but I don't know what it was. It had a real had a sweetness to it. It was a really good beer that I had over there. I forget what the main one was called. I wish somebody remembered what the name of that was, one of our listeners. But we had another one called the Eagle, and the Eagle, I'll go ahead and say the Eagle was pretty terrible. It's an AB InBev product. So,
sure.
But it's specific for the country of Uganda. It's a kind of beer that as soon as you start pouring it, it starts to die in the glass, just get flat. And I did drink the whole beer, but we were enjoying maybe wine a little more than beer while we were there.
But so those were the stats about all the places that we had beers from. And as we've been doing this, we have had most of our people who listen to our show are in New York. But it's been really exciting to see how many other states download the stuff. Like, it's just weird. Like, you guys don't monitor this, but every once in a while I do. It's like a poker machine. Keep refreshing. Sometimes that's not very healthy, but it is really cool when all of a sudden I get done with a workout and see, wow, someone from Georgia just downloaded the entire archive.
Oh
wow, yeah.
It's like, why do we just get 12 all at once? Oh, they just, one person got everything. So I want to list all the places where apparently we're being listened to.
Please.
Cool.
Which is, in fact,
and it may be more, right? Because if somebody's listening on Spotify or on,
well, that's another thing. It tells me how people are listening, but then another category is where people are listening.
Gotcha.
So definitely some Spotify, Chrome, but the places that are identified, there's actually, but you're right that there are some that are unknown because there's a small category.
Oh, but you have a track of all of them. That's great.
I have a track of all the one that they can tell. So we've had listeners in order of popularity.
Okay.
New York, Ohio, Virginia, Georgia, Massachusetts, Arkansas, New Jersey, California, Connecticut, Illinois, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Hawaii.
All right. Hawaii.
And we haven't had any international for a while, but right at the beginning we had people in Italy twice, I think. We had
Buonissimo.
I think there was one in Poland. I think there was one in Switzerland. And with some degree of regularity, this might be our friend Tripelman's doing. We seem to have a slightly loyal following in Hamilton, Ontario.
Well,
Okay.
that or Collective Arts, they hear us calling, I think.
Well, that's also possible as well. But like, there's like this every time what happens is you go on, you look at the map, and like, oh, all these little things are different colors. And I'm sorry, I didn't mention Nebraska.
Steven says Nebraska.
That is one place that maybe wasn't. He's listening there. Maybe that's part of the unknowns.
Yeah.
Because I thought I did see Nebraska once, but yeah. So that adds one more. And since we're on this thing of thanking people, I want to do a few thank yous.
Please.
Okay. First of all, I do want to say a few things about some breweries that were notable. I'm not going to say favorite because we do things differently, but obviously Single Cut keeps doing great stuff. Big Alice, actually. Let me just mention them in conjunction with the Curtain Up Project. We hope to bring more of them to you in the future. They've been an incredible thing that happened this year. It seemed to be somewhat of an outgrowth of Black is Beautiful, I was so glad we were able to do a show about them and how successful that was. But Curtain Up has that great recipe from Gun Hill, which Big Alice has, which I'm going to go buy really soon. Some of the other good ones I had this year were Hoof-Hearted, Hardywood, a real outlier as far as something that I noticed I was getting a lot of without really realizing there was a brewery was Stillwater.
Sure, yeah.
And I know I drank the On Fleek here on the show, talked about the Big Bunny. Another one was Kung Pao. They had like a Kung Pao stout. It was just fucking great.
Where was that from?
Stillwater.
Oh, okay, Stillwater. Yeah.
They're contract brewers mostly. I think last I heard they were in Maryland. They were brewing in Maryland. I don't know who they're brewing from, but yeah. But another, obviously, I mentioned Hardywood last week is a great new favorite. Hoof-Hearted out of the Columbus area.
Yep.
Huck, you mentioned you thought that that was coming probably from 12%, right?
Yeah, or Great South Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they've contract brewed out on Long Island.
What's the business model at 12%? Because I know they seem to be mostly an importer, but now they're doing collaborations.
Yeah,
they don't do any of their own stuff, right?
It's a good question. I don't really know. I know they are. I think they started as something that was importing Evil Twin when they were first coming from Denmark, but they're one of the ones they distribute.
Yeah,
not Evil Twin NYC, but old school Evil Twin, where they still contract like Even More Jesus and beers like that.
Right.
But I really don't know. I know they have a Fat Orange Cat as one of theirs.
Yeah.
And a couple of others. Abomination. You had an Abomination a few weeks ago.
Now, but that's the thing. Are those directly from 12% or are they collaborations still?
I think they're under the 12% umbrella.
Okay.
But I haven't done the research on that. They're out of New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah.
Because the reason I asked you was because when I was talking about Hoof-Hearted and realizing this is a great brewery from Ohio that I don't even know about that I need to send my dad to go check out. And you said 12%. I noticed they were on the label as well.
Oh, okay.
Because their main deal is they're in the Columbus area.
All right.
We'll have to ask Incredulous Bulk a little bit about that one. Also, I've got a few really good beers I've had from, and this is an old standard, but I have a few that I haven't even touched that I'm waiting for is from the brewery in Placentia, California. But all those things aside, I just want to give a few thank yous to, first of all, our friends at the Love of Cinema Pod. They gave me a few really good pieces of advice at the beginning to make all of this a little less scary and a little less daunting and more possible. I really, really want to thank John Hoffman, who designed our logo.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope every week when I promote our episodes and I cut and paste episode 12, episode 13, that I'm not bastardizing his whole thing, because I want to thank our sponsors, Astoria Beer and Cheese, Ditmars, 3511 Ditmars, for being a continued inspiration and also for giving us some really nice free beers. We're really happy to have you there. Want to thank all of our guest beer Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you guys.
Oh, well, I want to thank you, Captain, for making this happen because we've been talking about a podcast for 8-9 years.
I think we have, yeah. It's
well, maybe not that long. About 7 years, I think.
Yeah, and how we got there. We don't need to get into that. I told that story in episode 1, so you can listen to that.
Right, but now we're actually making it happen, and you made that happen. So thank you.
Yeah.
He's holding something up.
What is
okay, this is something I promised to. I thought I was going to work it in earlier. I know we're getting near to the end.
It's a little white outed, so we can't quite make it out. Yeah.
So in honor of what we do, my sister and her husband, also known as my brother-in-law, yesterday, a few days ago, I picked up the mail. I got a Christmas present from them, and it's some place that does stuffed animals that are based on microbes. And so this is a yeast.
Oh,
they did this in honor of the podcast.
Look at that.
It's a yeast.
I see that.
And it has eyes. I have a feeling that's an artistic.
Yeah, I don't think
they did, but
have eyes like that.
They are alive, though. Yeah. They are alive.
They are. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Captain and Huck. This has been a nice constant to have, and hopefully, we've also brought some joy to all those listeners wherever in the world they might have.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Inside. So.
Well,
I know. Beer Wonder wanted to talk about some New Beer's resolutions.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, real quick. I'm looking for one of my New Beer's resolutions this year is to try and figure out sours in honor of Mother Pucker and Sourpuss. So hopefully, you can expect some more fun sour beers from me this year. So that's on my list.
Hey, you dug on that goza. That's.
I know we're opening up. Huck, Captain, do you have any specific New Beer's resolutions?
I would suggest you try more of the dry hop sours.
Okay.
Because you like the hops.
I love the hops.
But if you get into one of those ones, you see one that's like that's a hoppy sour. I think that might be a good way to get in. Yeah.
Yeah.
New Beer's resolutions. I'm not really a New Year's resolution. I'm more of a look back at the year kind of person than look forward because, I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I already ordered a case of beer from Evil Twins, so.
Well, that's promising.
More issues really of having too much beer in the house. Oh, but I didn't tell you guys about my we have a regular fridge, but I discovered a beer fridge in the house. It's a winter only beer fridge, but under the air conditioner, it's very drafty, and I can keep beer there, and it stays cold.
And probably keeps the house warm.
It's helping to protect the house from that cold weather. Yeah. So, I'd like to have a beer fridge, but I don't think it's necessary. No, I have no resolutions. None.
Okay, so
way to go. Way to bring the room down, man.
No, it's
please.
It's good. When we first started having our virtual Beer Avengers meetings, it was absolutely to see people and make sense and make things seem moderately more normal or have a reminder of the things that made us feel normal. Another was because we'd been having these wonderful get-togethers at my place every time I got a Tavor crate.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share it with you guys, even if I couldn't share it with you guys. And I actually went through most of that March Tavor crate in our virtual sessions.
Nice.
Got another one near the end of the year. We haven't really had many off-camera or off-mic meetings, and I've been saving some of those. So I think my New Beer's resolution is going to be to make every show a 2-beer show for me.
That's a great
done,
resolution.
Captain.
Because I can't resolve to have a Tavor beer every time and still honor our sponsorship deal, because there's some times, this is not an obligation. Some of the beers that Ryan gave me today, I'm really looking forward to having, this is going on the show next week. Right. This is our sponsored pour, which will be a soundbite eventually. But if I'm going to include a Tavor beer on that week, that will be my second beer. And so my goal is to get myself to a point where I can start ordering from them again. Because I do have a beer fridge. Thanks to my friend Zach, who gave me all his home brewing equipment before he left town and then moved back again. And one of his home, and I haven't really learned how to do a home brewing, but part of the home brewing equipment was a beer fridge, and so that's become my beer fridge. So
I did think of a resolution though,
Nice.
that I want to get beers to y'all because I have
Oh.
extra beers, and we're gonna maybe even this week get beers, get them
Yes.
moving between us.
Nice.
You know, I know you
Let's
have those
do
Astoria
that.
beer and cheese beers. You owe us beers actually from.
I owe you beers. Yes, I definitely do. And in fact, I don't even refrigerate them. I put them in a special corner of my apartment and say, these are for
Well,
the
if
other
there's a
Avengers.
lot of fruit in it, you want to make sure you refrigerate it.
Well, one of them is a sour.
No, it's okay. It's not big fruity.
Okay, that one's for me.
That's right.
From
in my
Transmitter.
Adventures in 2021. Ooh, fun. All right.
Because like I said, I just ordered more, so I want to get some of these to you guys, and so yeah, there you go. That's my resolution.
Well, today Ryan gave me these great meads. He gave me a really nice Imperial Stout. He gave me something else. Oh, he gave me one of those. I told you before we started recording. 3 Floyds. People Power. Their version of the People Power.
Yeah.
All to benefit the ACLU. And some of the ones I bought on my own just because they've got the curtain up.
Mhm.
They've got the Gun Hill curtain up, and I'm sure they're going to get the Big Alice eventually. Also, I got some great KCBC Imperial Stouts.
Oh, which one is it? Oh, you don't want to tell us?
Okay. No, what I can edit out the silence here because I can actually pull it up, but I have to. I'm gonna find them. Okay. Oh, here we go.
Because I know they got some different ones.
I know. They're doing good stuff right now.
Oh,
What we don't see.
yeah. I had last year's version. I had actually had one of those this year that I aged from last year's batch. Yeah, that's a great beer.
How did it age?
Excellently. In fact, I think I might have brought that. No, that was a different thing. Yeah, great beer. That's a great beer. And actually, that reminds me of. Oh, you got that one too.
I got 2 of these.
Ooh, fun.
That looks like fun. Yeah, I saw that.
Deadlock Victim.
They have those at my my local. But yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned KCBC because there was a couple of breweries we didn't mention that I want to shout out to. KCBC. I've had a lot of great single cut this year.
Oh,
I know I mentioned other half, but a couple upstate. Industrial Arts,
Right. Great one.
Great House, and Sloop Brewing.
There it is.
I really dig them a lot too. There you go.
Sloop, there it is.
So that's I get it. Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you did there. I
Yeah.
see. You used the word on the song. Yeah, I see.
Well, Huck, it looks like you've got your uke.
Well,
Are
normally
you,
I look at the time but we started the recording a little early, so we have a bit of a longer show. But it's not too long.
No, I don't think
people
there is
enjoy
such
it?
a thing as too
No.
long. I think it's nice to have a supersized show to end this
End the
super
year.
shitty year.
Yeah. Well, on to better things in 2021 and on to more beers in 2021, right?
Hell yeah,
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. All right.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you guys. Thank our. Oh, I think that Stephen and Lynn and Bricken are all still listening. So thank you for
Yeah,
tuning
thanks for
into
tuning
our
in to
Facebook
our-
Live event.
Yes,
We're
thank
not.
you.
Don't expect us to do this on a regular basis, but we might try it again sometime.
Yeah.
All right, Huck. Yeah, you want to play us out?
Let's do it. Happy New
All right.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Beer.
Mm.
Well, with a beer, Avengers, beer, Avengers, beer, Avengers.
We're the Avengers.
Avengers.